Hey there, Clever Masterminds, it's your homeboy Clever Boy E6, and this is going to be my review for the first half of The Walking Dead Season 7. We're going to be talking a little about each episode, and I'm going to give my thoughts on each episode. And if you want to check out any of my individual episode reviews for the first half of Season 7, I have a review for each episode of Season 7 so far. So if you want to watch any of those, link will be in the description to my Season 7 reviews playlist. And they're pretty in-depth. They're like 15 minutes each. Some are like 20 minutes, but they're pretty in-depth. And yeah, so anyways, if you want to check out any of those, link will be in the description to my Season 7 reviews playlist. So, if you're not caught up with The Walking Dead up to the end of the first half of Season 7, well, what are you even doing here? But anyways, if you're not caught up to The Walking Dead Season 7 mid-season finale, don't watch this video because I don't want to be the one to spoil the show for you. So if you're not caught up, don't watch this video because there will be spoilers for Season 7. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so starting with the Season 7 premiere, titled The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, which is actually a flashback to the end of Season 1, when Rick and the survivors were in the CDC, and Dr. Jenner let them out, and Rick told them that he was grateful, and Dr. Jenner replied with, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be. So, yeah, it was actually, the title for the Season 7 premiere was a flashback to the end of Season 1. Okay, so this episode was the most brutal episode of a TV series that I have ever seen. It was even worse than the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones, and this episode was just such a brutal episode. So finally, after months of waiting, we got to find out who Negan killed, and he killed Abraham and Glenn. So, anyways, we get to see the eeny, meeny, miny, moe sequence from Rick's point of view, and he's looking around, and Negan's doing the eeny, meeny, miny, moe sequence, and the bat lands on Abraham, and I think Negan chose to kill Abraham because Abraham's one of the strongest survivors in the group, and I think Negan might have been a little intimidated by him, and that's why he killed him. But anyways, so we see Abraham give Sasha the peace sign, and I actually noticed this upon second viewing. Abraham gave Sasha the peace sign as a way of saying goodbye because he knew he was about to die. So he gave her the peace sign as a way of saying goodbye to her. And yeah, so anyways, it was just such a brutal scene. And after the first hit, Abraham tells Negan to suck his nuts. And he got one more ableism in there, but yeah, I miss his one-liners. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. I told Negan to suck his nuts as Negan was killing him. But, yeah, so anyways, but after Negan kills Abraham, then Daryl got out of line and punched Negan in the face, which caused Negan to kill Glenn. And Abraham's death was sad, but for me it was more shocking. But Glenn's death was really sad. It was sad to see Glenn die because Glenn was my favorite character on the show. And it was really sad to see him go. But yeah, so anyways, and Glenn's final words to Maggie are, Maggie, I'll find you. So yeah, anyways, but it was such a brutal scene to see both Abraham and Glenn die. Because, like, after Negan hits Glenn with Lucille, like, we see his eye popping out of its socket, and it's just, oh man, such a brutal scene. But anyways, it was really sad to see Abraham and Glenn die, and I still haven't fully recovered from that scene. But yeah, so anyways, this episode was really all about Rick. Like, the eeny, meeny, miny, moe sequence was from Rick's point of view, and like, Rick was hallucinating every character in the lineup getting hit by Lucille. So yeah, anyways, yeah, so the whole episode was from Rick's point of view, and Rick has a hallucination towards the end of the episode where everyone is sitting around the table at Alexandria, and Abraham and Glenn are alive, and they're all sitting around the table eating dinner, and Glenn and Maggie's baby was born, and Glenn's holding this little Asian baby, and they're all happy, they're all talking, and everything's good, and it was sort of like what the future could have been if they'd never met Negan. So yeah, anyways, I thought that was pretty cool to see that, and yeah, so anyways, This was my favorite episode of The Walking Dead by far. And, I mean, it was a really shocking episode, and it was brutal to see Abraham and Glenn die. But still, it was an amazing episode. And, yeah. So anyways, on to episode 2, titled The Well. So, in this episode, we get to see Carol and Morgan, and they arrive at the Kingdom. So, the Kingdom is this nice, well-established community run by King Ezekiel, who has a pet tiger, Shiva. So, it's pretty cool to see a tiger on the show. So I think the tiger looks pretty good for a CGI tiger. I think Shiva looks pretty good. And it was cool to see the Kingdom in this episode. It was cool to meet King Ezekiel. And we also met some of the survivors from the Kingdom, like Richard and Benjamin, who Morgan is training. And yeah, so anyways, so this episode just focused on the Kingdom. And the Kingdom, much like the Hilltop, is producing for the Saviors under the threat of violence. And yeah, so anyways, so Carol moves to like this little cottage, and she just wants to be alone. She doesn't want to be like around other people. She just wants to be alone. So it's cool to see Morgan and Carol again in this episode, and it was cool to see the Kingdom and meet King Ezekiel and Shiva. And yeah, so anyways, so yeah, I liked this episode. I thought it was pretty good, and yeah. So anyways, so we see the Saviors arrive at the Kingdom to collect what the Kingdom has for them, and Richard, one of the survivors from the Kingdom, fed like dead walkers to these pigs and slaughtered the pigs, and he gives the pigs to the Saviors. So I actually didn't pick up that Richard gave the Saviors tainted meat until I read a recap of the episode. So yeah, anyways, but this was a pretty good episode, and yeah, so I have to go kind of fast through these episodes because I don't want to be filming this video for too long because I have some stuff to do tonight. So I'm going to go kind of fast through these, but anyways, now we're on to episode 3, titled The Cell. What? Oh god, no. Oh no. So, I figured I'd do that for this video because in this episode we see Daryl locked in the cell at the sanctuary and they keep playing Easy Street over and over again. So I figured I'd do that for this video. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. But anyways, so in this episode we see Daryl locked in the cell at the sanctuary, and at the end of episode 1, Negan took Daryl with him, and so Negan's just torturing Daryl just to break him down, and they're keeping him awake by playing Easy Street really loudly, and yeah, so anyways, they're like feeding him dog food sandwiches, and yeah, so anyways, so also in this episode, Dwight is sent on a mission to bring back an escaped savior named Gordon. It says Gordon's his name on the Walking Dead Wikia, but it wasn't said in this episode, so we'll just go with Gordon. But anyway, so Gordon says that he would rather die than return to the sanctuary, so ultimately Dwight kills him out of mercy. But anyways, so yeah, one thing that I didn't really like about this episode is that there were a lot of scenes of Daryl locked in the cell, and they were playing Easy Street over and over again, and I got sick of hearing that song after a while. But anyways, it's kind of like, after a while, like, we get it, Daryl's locked in this cell, and I mean, it got kind of old after a while for me. But anyways, so this wasn't one of my favorite episodes from the first half of season 7. It wasn't a bad episode, but I didn't like it as much as some of the other episodes. But so on to season 7, episode 4, titled Service. So this episode just focuses on Alexandria. So Negan and the Saviors arrive in Alexandria to collect half of Alexandria's supplies, and Negan makes Rick hold Lucille, and you can tell in this episode, like, Rick's grip is tightening on Lucille, and he just wants to crack Negan over the head with it, but he refrains from doing it because he knows Negan has a much larger army, and the Saviors would kill him and everyone there, and it'd just be a disaster. It'd be the end of the show. But yeah, there'd be no more Walking Dead because no one would be alive. But anyways, So the Saviors take the majority of Alexandria's furniture. They take all of Alexandria's medicine and all of the firearms. So, anyways, it's also revealed in this episode that Shane's actually the father of Judith, because that was a question that I had for a long time. Like, who is Judith's dad? Is it Shane or Rick? And it was finally revealed in this episode after 5 seasons that Shane's actually Judith's father. So, yeah, anyways, I thought this was a good episode. It was great to see the survivors again and see how they're dealing with Negan being in charge. And, I really like this episode. And, now we're on to episode 5, titled Go-Getters. So, episode 5 mainly focuses on the hilltop. So, Maggie wakes up at the hilltop, and Sasha's also there at the hilltop, and Gregory demands that they leave the hilltop, but Jesus convinces Gregory to let them stay, and the Saviors arrive at the hilltop to collect half of their supplies. And we see this conversation with Simon, played by Stephen Ogg, and Gregory inside Gregory's office. And, like, the whole time, I thought Simon was going to kill Gregory at some point, and he didn't. But I thought Gregory wasn't going to make it out of there. But, it was kind of a weird scene, but my favorite scene from this episode was when the Saviors opened the gate to the hilltop, and there was this car that was playing Beethoven music, and it was attracting walkers, and walkers came into the hilltop, and Sasha and Jesus killed them, but Maggie was driving this tractor, crushed some of the walkers, and this car that was playing the Beethoven music, and also, we see Carl and Enid go to the hilltop, and Carl and Enid kiss, so yeah. But also it was cool to see Carl driving a car when he kills that one walker with the car, and he's like 13 in the show, and he's not legally eligible to drive because he only has one eye, and that was pretty cool to see Carl driving a car, and I like that scene. And also when Maggie punched Gregory in the face, and she told him, "This is our home now, so you'll start learning to call me by my name. Not Marcia, not Honey, not Dear. Maggie Rhee." So I really like that scene because Rhee was Glenn's last name. So yeah, that was a pretty cool scene. So Sasha asks Jesus if he can find out where Negan lives, and Jesus sneaks into the back of the truck that's headed back for the sanctuary, and he finds Carl there. So, I thought this was one of the better episodes of the first half of Season 7, and so I really enjoyed this episode. It was great to see Maggie and Sasha again, and so it was also cool to see Carl and Enid kiss, now we're on to Season 7, Episode 6, titled Swear. So this episode focuses on Tara and Heath. So, Tara and Heath went on a 2-week supply run, and Tara is separated from Heath after falling off of a bridge during a walker attack, and she washes up on a beach, and Tara is saved by this girl named Cindy, and she follows Cindy back to her community, which is the Oceanside community, and it's a secluded group consisting of only women, and this was because all the men in the group were slaughtered by the Saviors, and Cindy helps Tara find her way back to Alexandria, but makes her swear never to mention Oceanside to anyone. So Tara returns to Alexandria, but she didn't know that Denise died, and Denise and Tara were girlfriends, so she didn't know about Denise's death, and she didn't know about how Negan killed Glenn and Abraham, and how the Saviors took half of Alexandria's supplies, so she didn't know anything about that. But this was an okay episode. I went back and watched it a second time with Dad because he hadn't seen episodes 5 and 6, so I watched this episode with Dad, and after watching it a second time, I really didn't like it as much. I just thought it was an okay episode, but it wasn't a great episode, and it's probably my least favorite for the first half of Season 7. So anyways, but on to episode 7, which is titled Sing Me a Song. So Carl and Jesus arrive at the sanctuary in that truck that was headed for the sanctuary, and Jesus jumps out of the truck to recon the area, but Carl stays behind to ambush the Saviors, and he's going to kill Negan, so he takes a machine gun from inside the truck, and he gets to the sanctuary, and he shoots down a couple Saviors, but is tackled by Dwight, and Negan's impressed by Carl's bravery and offers to give him a tour of the sanctuary. And Negan takes Carl back to his apartment and makes him take off his eye bandage and show him his empty eye socket. And Negan makes Carl sing him a song. So Carl sings "You Are My Sunshine." And so anyways, meanwhile, Rick and Aaron are scavenging for supplies because they went on a supply run to get supplies for Negan's next visit. And they get to this pond that's filled with walkers, but there's a dilapidated houseboat in the middle of the pond. So anyways, Rosita makes Eugene craft her a bullet for a gun that she found in the woods back in episode 4, because Eugene knows how to make bullets, so he makes her a bullet. And also in this episode, we see Negan iron one of the Savior's faces for, I forget what it was for, but Negan irons the Savior's face, and it was pretty brutal to see one of the Saviors get their face ironed, so Negan takes Carl to Alexandria, and he's basically just waiting for Rick and Aaron to return. So I'm kind of losing my voice, so I'm gonna take a sip of Diet Coke. That's refreshing. But so this was a pretty good episode. So I liked this episode. Thought it was a pretty good episode. And now we're on to the mid-season finale for season 7, episode 8, titled Hearts Still Beating. So in this episode, Rick and Aaron make it to the houseboat, and they get on this boat that's riddled with bullet holes, and they're trying to get to this canoe, and one of the walkers pulls Aaron down underwater, but Aaron escapes, and they get to this canoe and get on the houseboat. But so they load up this cargo truck with supplies, and so they return to Alexandria to find Negan's already in Alexandria, and Spencer goes to talk to Negan and says that Negan should appoint him as the new leader of Alexandria. And he says Rick's gonna find a way to screw things up eventually. And Negan asks Spencer why he doesn't just kill Rick himself. And he says it's because you've got no guts. And he stabs Spencer in the stomach and slices his stomach open. And Spencer's guts spill out of him, and Negan's like, there they are, they were inside you the whole time. You did have guts. I've never been so wrong in my whole life. So, so Rosita pulls out the gun with the bullet that Eugene made her, and shoots at Negan, but it hits Lucille instead. And Negan orders Arat, one of the Saviors, to kill somebody, so Arat turns around and shoots Olivia in the head. Now, I didn't like Spencer at all, and I was kind of glad to see him go, but I wasn't too emotionally attached to Olivia, because, she was just kind of in the background. She didn't really do much, so, I wasn't really it wasn't really that sad to see her go. She was just always kind of there, but, I did not like Spencer, so, I was glad that he died, and, so Rick and Aaron arrive right then, and Negan leaves with Eugene as a hostage so that Eugene can make bullets for him. But so that night, after a talk with Michonne, Rick is finally motivated to fight the Saviors, and the group travels to the hilltop, and they reunite with Maggie, Sasha, and Enid, and Daryl and Jesus are also at the hilltop, and Rick and Daryl hug, and everyone's reunited. And I said this for my review of the mid-season finale, but we started out at the beginning of season 7, and it kind of feels like it's hopeless, because we know that one of our beloved characters has just been beaten to death, and it kind of feels hopeless, because, Abraham and Glenn die, and at the end of the episode, the group is broken, but now, at the end of the first half of Season 7, the group's all reunited at the hilltop, and they're ready to fight the Saviors, and it kind of feels like there's hope, so, yeah, but anyways, I really like this mid-season finale, and the first half of Season 7 was kind of a disappointment to me, because I just felt like, since there are so many storylines going on at this current time in The Walking Dead, I mean, we had just one episode focusing on, like, the Kingdom, we had an episode focusing on the Sanctuary, and then Alexandria, and then the Hilltop, and then Tara and Heath, so there's just a lot going on in the show right now. So, like, we saw the Sanctuary for the first time in episode 3, but we didn't see the Sanctuary again until episode 7. So, yeah, I mean, I just didn't really like how they had one episode focusing on one particular group, and then we didn't see that group for weeks. So, yeah, I didn't really like that. But, anyways, overall, this was a pretty good first half, but the second half should be lit, because we're going to be getting the March to War storyline, and maybe we'll be getting, like, little teases of All Out War, but I don't think we'll see All Out War really start until Season 8, which I cannot wait for All Out War to begin, because it's going to be amazing. We're going to be seeing Alexandria and the Hilltop and the Kingdom all team up to fight the Saviors, and it's going to be awesome. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be amazing, and, yeah, so, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this review for the first half of Season 7. Like I said, if you want to check out any of my individual episode reviews, link will be in the description to my Season 7 reviews playlist. So yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all for our next video. Alright, bye guys.